Arman is no joke. Arman versus Ilia is an interesting matchup. I do not think the UFC will make Arman versus Ilia because I think they love Ilia as a champion. He's a great champion, and I don't think they really want Arman to become champion. He has a legitimate chance at beating Ilia. I can't believe I said it. I think Ilia might knock him out, but if anyone has a chance of beating Arman at Ilia at 155, it's Arman, the Turkey Mound.
Listen, the American Phantomweight champion Sean O'Malley is calling out the UFC for what he sees as completely unfair business practices. And honestly, when you hear what this man is saying, it makes you wonder what's really going on behind those closed doors. O'Malley made it crystal clear that he wants to see a title fight happen in early 2026, which seems like a reasonable timeline for someone at his level, right? But here's where things get absolutely wild. The UFC is straight up refusing to make this particular title fight happen. And according to O'Malley, it's not about scheduling or logistics or any of that normal matchmaking stuff. The reason they're holding back, they're apparently terrified of what the potential result might be. Think about that for a second. A major fighting promotion is so worried about the outcome of a fight that they won't even book it. That's not just questionable. That's a whole different level of manipulation in the sport we love.
And last one from me. Earlier today, Islam Makhachev did an interview and said he's not ruling out coming back down to 155. But if it was up to you, would you rather fight him at 170 to get that third title, or would you be willing to fight him at 55 because that's the division that people say he might be the best at?
It would be much better for me to fight him in 170, and I will beat him and get the third title. That will be the best scenario for me.
Now, the American fighter has gone even further with his criticism of the UFC, and he's not pulling any punches with his words either. He's suggesting that the promotion is way too nervous to book this particular matchup, and he's getting specific about names here. O'Malley claims they absolutely will not schedule Arman Tsarukyan to face the current UFC lightweight champion Ilia Topuria, and if you've been following the lightweight division at all, you know that's a fight that makes total sense on paper. But Topuria, man, he's got completely different plans brewing in his head, and what he's saying is honestly kinda shocking. The guy is even ready to vacate his second belt. Just walk away from it just to get the chance to fight Islam Makhachev. That's how badly he wants that matchup. When a champion is willing to give up a title just to prove a point and take on a specific opponent, you know there's something bigger driving him than just collecting hardware.
Давай предположим, что все случилось, Царукян с Топурией дерутся. Ты кого видишь в этом поединке? Наверняка это бой ты себе представлял. Ты кого видишь фаворитом в этом бою?
Я не вижу шансов у Топури.
То есть ты считаешь, что Арман нападает, да?
Тоже не даю. Арман слишком дистанционно дерется. С ударниками. Держит дистанцию хорошо. Ногами лучше работает. И сейчас уже Арман слишком хорошо. Он уже... У него есть материал, который он может посмотреть и хорошо изучить.
Topuria. After all the insane buzz swirling around Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria, and I mean this conversation has been absolutely everywhere in MMA circles, former lightweight champion Khabib Nurmagomedov decided to add another layer to the storm that's brewing. And when Khabib speaks, people listen, because this guy knows what he's talking about. When it comes to lightweight dominance, he suggested something that a lot of people hadn't really been focusing on before, but Arman Tsarukyan's size advantage, combined with his relentless wrestling ability, and that absolutely non-stop pace he brings to every single fight, could actually drag Topuria into some seriously deep water if they ever faced off. Khabib wasn't just throwing out names randomly either. He was making a calculated observation based on styles and matchups. His point was clear. Everyone's so focused on Islam as the final boss of the division, but the real future threat that people should be watching out for isn't just Islam Makhachev standing alone at the top. It's Arman Tsarukyan, who's quietly building himself into an absolute nightmare matchup for anyone in the top 5, including all the champions everyone keeps talking about. Perfect fight
to start this thing. Put that on Paramount Plus, watch the subs just skyrocket, right? After doing some now, and I said multiple times, I said, please, I want to be very clear. I am not saying that Paddy deserves this more than Arman, but I'm just saying because he hasn't fought, because Ilia hasn't fought, and I suspect they want to get into a training camp. If they haven't even started one already, I suspect they're going to want to announce this. Get rolling with the promotion. There's a lot of history there, and you have Arman sit in the front row and you say he is next. Like, let's get some decorum here. Let's start figuring out who's next. What's the pecking order? People misunderstood what I was trying to say. There's like, what? You're saying Paddy above Arman? No, I'm not saying, but if you watch fighting for more than 6 months, you understand that a lot of this is based on timing.
Arm, this fighter, who is also a former featherweight champion with serious credentials in that division, claimed the lightweight belt earlier this year after knocking out Charles Oliveira in what was an absolutely spectacular performance that had fans jumping out of their seats. Meanwhile, on the other side of the division, Tsarukyan has been steadily climbing up the rankings without all the flashy talk or social media drama, just putting in work and winning fights, and now he's officially the UFC's top-ranked fighter in the lightweight division, which is no small accomplishment when you look at how stacked that weight class is right now. The Armenian fighter continued to build serious momentum in his last outing by defeating Dan Hooker via arm triangle choke submission in the second round. And that wasn't just a win, that was a statement. Hooker's no joke, he's a veteran who's been in there with killers, and Tsarukyan made it look almost easy. Now combat sports analyst Ariel Helwani, who's one of the most respected voices in MMA journalism, is saying flat out that it's time for Paddy Pimblett to step up and fight Arman Tsarukyan. That's the fight Helwani believes makes sense right now for both guys' careers and for the division as a whole.
The #1 fight in the lightweight division. And dare I say, it's close. It's close to as big as Paddy versus Ilia, given how popular Arman is getting in that part of the world and just how good he looked in this fight. And so I say, if we're not doing it on January 24th, and it sounds at least as of now that we're not,
Arman just fought, no?
Yes, it was the plan. It was the right move when Arman just fought. It was the plan, the right move when Arman was out, when we didn't know how this fight was going to go.
Tsarukyan has just stepped out of the octagon, leaving his mark in a big way, and you can feel the shift happening in the division. He's got the size advantage over a lot of guys at lightweight, the kind of wrestling that can neutralize almost anyone, and that non-stop pressure style that just grinds opponents down round after round until they break. He's not just another name floating around in the mix, hoping for his shot someday. Not anymore, he's a real legitimate contender now. Someone who could absolutely challenge for the title and not look out of place doing it. But hang on a second, because the story keeps rolling and getting more interesting by the day. Paddy the Baddy Pimblett is still out there in the spotlight doing his thing on social media, talking trash and looking to grab that attention for himself like he always does. And you know what? A fight between Arman Tsarukyan and Paddy Pimblett would be absolutely electric. The kind of matchup that sells itself based purely on styles and personalities colliding.
This fight isn't happening in January, and then let's say March at the earliest, right? Because it's not going to happen in Sydney. We suspect Volk will be on that card. Then the winner of that fight is not fighting until, like, I don't know, October? Or we're talking about another year out for Arman?
I understand that from the Arman Tsarukyan perspective, but if we're touching all the chess pieces, right? If we're accounting for every piece on the board, I think you only get one shot with Paddy and Ilia.
And honestly, Ilia Topuria could very well be the next fighter in line to take on Paddy Pimblett, which is exactly the kind of matchup that fans absolutely cannot stop talking about online, in forums, on podcasts, everywhere. This lightweight division is on fire right now, like seriously blazing hot with potential fights and storylines. And every single fight that happens matters in the grand scheme of things. The whole title scene, the rankings, who gets the next shot, all of it could flip completely upside down with just one more big win from any of these guys. That's what makes this moment in the lightweight division so compelling. There's no clear path, no obvious next step, just a bunch of killers all fighting to prove they deserve to be at the very top of the food chain.
Now Ian Garry, take a breath. Ian Garry was very confident coming into this one. He felt like Belal Muhammad was a broken man leaving the octagon versus Jack Della Maddalena. He promised that he was going to smoke him, that he was going to break him, that he was going to knock him out.
We need a #1 contender. When you beat #1 and you knock out #1 in the fashion that I believe I'm going to do it in, there's nothing else. I'm next.
But that's not what we saw. What we saw was a very close fight contested over 15 minutes where Belal Muhammad looked good. He had some success. He landed with the right hands. But he lost. He lost the fight clearly, but he did himself proud. So Belal should be proud of himself.
Gaethje in a good run. Topuria is expected to make his return for the UFC's first major card of 2026, which lines up perfectly with the promotion's usual schedule for champions coming off big wins. But here's where it gets complicated. Several names are seriously in contention to be his opponent, and the UFC hasn't made it clear who they're leaning toward yet. Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett have both been mentioned repeatedly as potential opponents, and both guys have very different cases for why they should get the shot. Gaethje made it it absolutely clear, like no room for interpretation clear, that he's quitting the UFC entirely if he doesn't get a title shot next year, which is a bold ultimatum to throw down, especially when you consider that he's already lost in past championship fights against both Khabib Nurmagomedov and Charles Oliveira. So it's not like he hasn't had his chances before, but Gaethje clearly believes he's earned another one. On the other hand, Pimblett and Topuria have been trading insults back and forth for a while now, keeping that rivalry simmering on social media, and in Pimblett says he's coming back strong in 2026 and wants his shot at the lightweight champ, and he's not being shy about calling Topuria out by name. Another former UFC fighter, Michael Bisping, didn't sugarcoat anything when he broke down the recent fight between Ian Gary versus Belal. Right away, he said this fight didn't match all the hype that Gary had been throwing around all week. Leading up to the bout, Gary came into fight week with serious swagger, talking confidently about knocking Belal out cold and saying he was next in line for the title shot without question. But once they actually started fighting and the cage door closed, things changed fast, and the reality of high-level competition set it.
But ultimately, it was Ian Machado Gary that got the victory. He looked smooth. He stopped every single takedown. He's polarizing. He talks a lot of crap, okay? He does. And do you know what? I've grown to really like this guy because he backs it up in the octagon. He talks a lot of trash, okay, but he backs it up and he dances around the octagon. He's got beautiful footwork. He's got good power. He's got excellent striking. Takedown defense was perfect, and he gave Shavkat a good run as well. And then if you didn't see on the microphone doing the post-fight interview, he cut an incredible promo for why he should be next to face Islam Makhachev.
Sure, Ian Gary got the win when the final bell rang and the judges read their scorecards, but Michael Bisping pointed out that Belal Muhammad was actually the real surprise of the night in terms of performance. This thing had plenty to say about Ian Gary's overall performance, and honestly, who wouldn't get fired up watching that kind of back and forth battle? Gary left absolutely everything he had in that octagon. Empty the tank completely, the fight was incredibly close, razor thin on the scorecards, but in the end, he managed to take home the victory and keep his undefeated record intact. He stuffed every single takedown attempt that Belal threw at him, which is no easy task considering Belal's wrestling pedigree, and he moved around that cage like he owned the place, controlling distance and dictating the pace. His strikes landed with real intent behind them. You could see the power and precision in every combination he threw. Sure, he talks a big game. Some people absolutely love his confidence and some people can't stand it, but when it comes time to actually fight and back up all those words, he delivers under the bright light. That wasn't luck or a fluke. That was skill and preparation showing up when it mattered most. He belongs in there with the best fighters in the welterweight division, and he keeps his cool even when things get heated and the pressure is on. Ian Gary isn't just hype and social media noise. He's genuinely skilled, polished in multiple areas of mixed martial arts, and right now the entire welterweight division can't ignore him anymore, whether they want to or not.
And I think Ian Gary should be next. And there's not many people that will be calling out Islam Makhachev because he's a terrible matchup for a lot of people. But Ian Gary's takedown defense tonight was phenomenal. Oh, and by the way, Ian Gary wasn't done with that. I spoke to him on the post-fight show, and he was, you know, his usual charismatic, cocky, charming self.
We have history. Our countries have history in the game. The biggest rivalry in the sport. You're Khabib's protege. I'm McGregor's protege.
If I said on the commentary on the broadcast that he's the cockiest bastard you'll ever meet, and he is. He is. But I love that. I hate boring fighters. Ian Gary, you might not like him, he might rub you up the wrong way, or you might love the guy. And that's the kind of emotion that...
But he evokes right. Michael Bisping didn't brush off Gary's accomplishments either, which says something coming from a former champion who knows what it takes to reach the top. He pointed out that Gary's not just running his mouth on Twitter for attention, he's actively forcing his way into the welterweight title picture by taking on top-ranked guys and making sure that fans, fighters, and UFC matchmakers all pay attention to what he's doing. Gary's already knocked off some seriously big names on his way up the rankings, built up legitimate hype for whatever his next fight, and made it crystal clear through his words and actions that he sees himself right alongside the sports elite fighters, not chasing them from behind.
Is Justin Gaethje officially retired? I hope not. I sure hope not. Let's unpack what happened here. Gaethje's looking to get a world title fight. Doesn't matter if it's against Oliveira, doesn't matter if it's against Ilia Topuria. There's a fight coming up and Gaethje would like to take on the winner. Now, the big problem is there was a backup fighter for that fight, and that backup fighter was Paddy the Baddy. Why is that a problem? Well, Because every time in UFC history, with one exception, the backup fighter has gotten a world title fight.
Meanwhile, UFC analyst Chael Sonnen bluntly said that Justin Gaethje is flat out mad at the UFC right now. And we're not talking about just a little bit irritated or slightly frustrated, no. He's seriously fired up, like legitimately angry about his situation. Gaethje wants real answers from the UFC brass about why things are playing out the way they are. He wants things to make sense from a competitive and business standpoint. And more than anything else right now, he just wants to fight, preferably for a title. That's what he feels he's earned at this stage of his career after years of putting on incredible performances and saving multiple UFC cards with his willingness to step up on short notice.
Well, as a matter of fact, there was a fight that was already agreed to, which was Dan Hooker versus Arman Tsarukyan, and that fight was said, and I quote, obviously, a number one contenders match. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I don't think that surprised anybody. That just didn't mean next. Somebody's going to fight Ilia Topuria, and then coming out the backside of that fight, whoever that somebody is will be determined between Tsarukyan and Hooker. So when you take Tsarukyan and Hooker off the board, and you're staring at the board, and you've got Justin Gaethje saying, hey, it's absolutely got to be me or bust.
Chael Sonnen says that Gaethje feels like the UFC keeps passing him over time and time again, while everyone else around him gets the big chances, the title shots, the high-profile matchups, all the attention and promotional push, and Gaethje's just sitting there waiting by the phone for a call that never seems to come. This guy is a former interim champion, which means he's already held UFC gold before, and he's one of the most exciting fighters the UFC's ever had on their roster in terms of pure entertainment value and putting on memorable fights, and yet he's not getting the call for these big opportunities. No wonder he's absolutely furious right now. It's not hard to understand where that frustration is coming from when you look at his resume and what he brings to the table every single time he steps into that octagon.
Either you have Michael Morales versus Islam Makhachev, or you have Michael Morales versus Carlos Prates for the number one contender fight. But then I'm thinking about that, and I'm like, hold on, if Carlos Prates wins and Ian Gary beats Bilal Muhammad, how is that fair to Ian Gary because he just beat Carlos Prates? Welterweight is crazy, and not to mention Kamaru Usman and Shavkat Rakhmonov are just lurking in the wings. I don't know what you do. This division's stacked, bro. It's crazy.
And not to mention, Islam just asked for a White House fight. You know, who do you put him against for a card that big, monumental? I don't know. I do not have the answer.
Adding on to the confusion swirling around the lightweight division, former Aussie UFC star Robert Whittaker and his podcast co-host didn't sugarcoat anything when they discussed Islam Makhachev's future. They straight up admitted that nobody in the MMA world actually knows what Islam Makhachev is going to do next. With 2 championship belts sitting on his shoulders right now, figuring out who Islam fights next and in which weight class, that's like trying to flip a coin in the middle of a hurricane and hoping for the best possible outcome. There are just too many variables and possibilities flying around to predict anything with confidence. The uncertainty is driving fans and analysts crazy because everyone wants to know what the pound-for-pound king's next move will be.
He did like a mistake when he was supposed to fight with me. He injured, he not come to weigh in, but he's still number one in this division, and he have to fight for the title.
What is
maybe Arman, maybe Gaethje, but not Paddy for sure.
Not Paddy.
Why not? How come, man? I don't know who baby bitch. Who like Islam Makhachev, on the other hand, didn't hesitate at all. When someone brought up the question of Ilia Topuria's next move and who he should fight, Islam went straight for the heavy hitters in the division, naming Arman Tsarukyan and Justin Gaethje without even pausing to think about it. In Islam's eyes, and he's been very clear about this publicly, those 2 fighters are the real proving ground in the lightweight division right now. The gatekeepers to title contention if Ilia wants people to take him seriously as a legitimate lightweight contender and not just a guy moving up from featherweight. He's gotta face one of them and prove himself against that level of competition. Arman fights like a storm system that never lets up, just relentless pressure from the opening bell, crazy pace that doesn't slow down, just non-stop forward movement and aggression from start to finish that breaks people mentally and physically. Then there's Gaethje, who's basically a knockout waiting to happen every single single second of every round. The guy can turn a fight completely upside down in a split second with one perfectly timed punch or combination. Islam's point is simple and direct. If you want to call yourself elite in this division, if you want to be mentioned in the same breath as the champions and top contenders, you have to take out one of these guys first. No shortcuts, no easy paths, no favorable matchmaking, just straight up competition against the best. Islam Makhachev is operating on a completely different level from everyone else in the sport right now, and honestly it's not even close when you watch him fight and compare his performances to other champions. Only a few fighters in the entire history of mixed martial arts ever reach this kind of dominance, where they're just clearly a step above everyone else in their division, and right now Islam is absolutely that guy with the target on his back that everyone is aiming for. It blows my mind when I watch his fights, is how ridiculously easy he makes everything look against world-class competition. He cruises through top-level opponents like he's out for a casual jog in the park, barely breaking the sweat even in championship rounds while his opponents are struggling to breathe and survive. It's like he's playing a different game than everyone else.
There is elite, and I think Islam is elite. This is what I think, this is what I feel when I train with him long.
But I know me and Islam, we have same goal, same like strategy, same good grappling, wrestling, striking. Like we good everywhere because we was training together like since 2000, like more than 20 years we training together, you know. And I know, and all people who training with Islam, they know how good Islam.
Watch him in the gym or check out any of those training clips that get posted from AKA or his training camps, and that icy laser-like focus just jumps out at you immediately. He moves like a guy who's already mastered everything there is to master in mixed martial arts, but somehow he still grinds and trains like he's got everything to prove, like he's still the hungry challenger instead of the established champion. That combination of hunger and discipline is next level, completely off the charts compared to most champions who start to coast once they get the belt. Every single time he steps out for a new fight, he looks sharper than before. Stronger, faster, more technical in every aspect of the game, like he somehow managed to upgrade himself since the last time we saw him fight. It's like he keeps unlocking new versions of himself, discovering new abilities and refining old ones to levels we haven't seen before. Just watch his fights, study the tape. This man is operating as a true champion should in every sense of the word. Look at his resume closely and you'll see what I mean about his level of competition. He's beaten former champions from multiple weight classes, knockout artists with serious power, world-class wrestlers and grapplers who dominated everyone else they faced. The toughest names you can possibly find in modern MMA, Islam's got wins over them. Most champions in combat sports start to plateau after a while. Once they've defended the belt a few times, they reach their peak and then slowly decline or stay stagnant. But Islam, he just keeps getting better somehow, improving in areas you wouldn't even think he needed to improve it. His timing is getting tighter and more precise with every fight. His striking is popping more and showing real knockout threat now. And once he gets on top of someone in grappling exchanges, you can feel the suffocating pressure even through the screen watching at home. Someone else in the division is hustling and scrambling just to keep up with the pace he's setting, but Islam's hitting another gear that they can't seem to match. He's evolving in real time right before our eyes, and honestly that's what makes him so absolutely scary as a champion and a competitor. He's not satisfied, he's not comfortable, he's still hunting for perfection. Nobody in the MMA community is really asking who can stop Islam Makhachev anymore. That question feels almost irrelevant at this point, given how dominant he's been. The real question that people are asking now, the one that's actually interesting to think about, is how much better can this guy actually get? What's his ceiling? Has he even reached it yet? His training is completely locked in with one of the best teams in the world. His mentality never cracks under pressure or adversity, and he walks into the cage every single time with that unshackable Digastani swagger and confidence that comes from years of elite training and competition. If this is what true greatness looks like in mixed martial arts, if this is the standard we're measuring champions against, then everyone else in the lightweight division and beyond is really just fighting for second place behind him.
Where I remind you that Justin Gaethje, on short notice as a 2-1 underdog, came in and beat Fatayev. Justin Gaethje put his entire career, his ability to main event, he put everything on the line and did it successfully, and he would like something for it.
Chael and further said that Justin Gaethje is definitely not retired from fighting, despite what some rumors might suggest. He's just frustrated with his current situation, and honestly, he has every single right to be upset given his accomplishments and what he brings to the sport. Gaethje wants a world title fight. It doesn't matter to him if it's against Charles Oliveira or Ilia Topuria or whoever else ends up holding that belt on the other side of the cage. He just wants whoever comes out on top of the title picture. That's it. That's all he's asking for. But the road to that title shot is suddenly blocked by circumstances outside his control, and Gaethje is flat out furious with the UFC and how they're handling matchmaking in the lightweight division. Chael got into what he sees as the real problem causing this frustration. The UFC picked Paddy Pimblett as the official backup fighter for the next title fight. Now, why is that such a big deal, you might be wondering? Well, except for one rare case in UFC history, the backup fighter almost always gets the next title shot after the scheduled championship fight happened. That's just how the system has worked historically. So now Gaethje is stuck on the outside looking in, watching someone else get positioned for the opportunity he feels he's earned.
And you got Paddy the Baddy that's completely undefeated in the UFC, plus has an organic face-off. You're put in a pretty interesting position. I mean, you've got a lot of correct answers. As a promoter, you dream of being in a position like this. You dream of having 3 and 4 and 5 guys that can all draw, sell, and bring attention no matter how you do it. But you also have to pick one, and there's a rumor, and the rumor is that in January on Paramount for their debut, they're going to contest the lightweight championship of the world, which means Ilia Topuria will be there.
Chael Sonnen broke down the situation perfectly on his show when he explained how the lightweight division turned into absolute chaos almost overnight. The UFC originally set up Arman Tsarukyan versus Dan Hooker as a clear official #1 contender fight, and everyone in the MMA community figured they knew exactly what was coming next in terms of matchmaking. Ilia Topuria takes on his next scheduled opponent in a title defense, and then whoever wins between Arman and Hooker gets the title shot right after that. Next in line, simple. Straightforward. Easy to understand, right? It made perfect sense from a competitive standpoint, and everyone accepted that as the plan moving forward. Then completely out of nowhere and without much explanation, everything changed in the span of a few days. The UFC straight up scrapped the Arman versus Hooker fight entirely, pulled it off the schedule, and now Justin Gaethje is making a ton of noise on social media and in interviews, saying loudly and clearly that he deserves to be the next title challenger instead of waiting behind anyone else. So what happens now for these MMA superstars who are all chasing the same prize? Ilia Topuria is chasing greatness and legacy in a way that few fighters do. He's calling out the biggest names in multiple divisions, going after that third championship belt like it's his destiny, and making it absolutely clear to everyone watching that he wants a permanent spot mentioned alongside the legends of the sport when it's all said and done. The guy's fearless in who he calls out, hungry for the biggest challenges possible, and honestly, he looks ready physically and mentally for whoever steps up next to challenge him. Arman Tsarukyan just keeps climbing the rankings too. Fight after fight, win after win. He brings non-stop pressure that wears people down, active skills in all areas of MMA, and the kind of relentless competitive drive that makes him a real problem for anyone in the lightweight division who has to face him. The big question hanging over the entire division right now is simple: who actually steps up next and shakes the entire MMA world with a massive performance or upset? So fight fans, what do you think about all this crazy? Can Topuria actually grab that third title in a third weight class and lock in his legacy as one of the all-time greats? Will Tsarukyan finally break through all the noise and take his shot at the championship crown that he's been working toward? Or does Islam Makhachev just keep steamrolling everyone who dares to challenge him and prove once again that he's the absolute guy to beat in this sport? Let's hear all your versions and thoughts down below in the comments section. Hit that like button if you're fired up for what's coming next in this division, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss anything. There's a lot more news coming, in-depth analysis of every matchup and fight night drama heading your way in the next few weeks and months.